Welcome to our Conversations with Mum series. I'm so happy to be welcoming Carter Siegel to our conversation today, where we're going to be talking about being a mum to grown-up children and also how we care for our parents through old age and ultimately in their passage to death. Carter's my good friend, neighbor, and business partner. We co-own Mill Yoga Studio in downtown Exeter, New Hampshire, and also Yoga Life Institute of New Hampshire teacher training with Alison Parks Dugas. Carter's been teaching yoga for over 20 years. She teaches regular classes and workshops at Mill Yoga, teaches yoga teachers, and also has her own personal yoga therapy practice where she works with people on a one-to-one basis. Carter lives just down the road from me in Exeter, where she's raised her two daughters, Noah and Zoe, who are now in their 20s. And her mother passed away in about 4 years ago now. And Carter, I know, played a big part in her care in the time leading up to her passing. Carter, thanks so much for chatting with me today. It's always a pleasure. As we
It's great to be here.
are, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
As we often talk about how people become attracted to yoga and find yoga
hmm
through different
hmm
avenues. Sometimes it's might be they want to be more flexible, might want to build strength. Often it's for stress relief, and often as well it's for people being drawn to something more, that sense of spiritual seeking. Could you start by letting us have a feel for what your path to yoga was?
Absolutely. So, yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I always love talking about this stuff and could probably talk for days about it. But I love that you've created this platform to show different perspectives on people's paths towards yoga and how they use yoga like every day in their everyday lives. Yeah, I mean, our yoga practice that you and I support is really yoga for householders. And so it's, how do we apply yoga to our complicated lives and families and professions and whatever we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And so when I first discovered yoga, it was a little more than probably 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. Um, Mom to very young kids, like, I don't know, 5 and 7, I think. And pretty anxious mom. And I would say that I'm sort of a type A, sort of a perfectionist. And so anxiety comes up, can come up often, I think, in people who are like this. And so I said to myself, I need to find, an outlet. I need to find a way to manage this. I was running, I'd work out, all those things. But I decided, like, I'm going to try something different. And there was a lovely, beautiful yoga studio in downtown Exeter over the greengrocer and called Blue Moon. And I went down there one morning. It was a summer morning, and took a class. And the gentleman teaching the class was actually a former Navy SEAL. And I thought, this is interesting. And so I went to the class, having no experience with any of it. And when I walked out, as I went home, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, something happened here. Like, I feel really different. Something is different from my regular, like going on a run or working out. And from that point forward, I decided I wanted to explore it more. And it became a journey for me over the last 25 years. And it's evolved from a practice that started as a very physical practice Very much about postures, very much about movement and strength. And, it was the only thing that would calm my mind was this dynamic, strong movement. And then over the past many years, it's evolved towards something very different. And I would say it's the more subtle aspects of yoga that I now really identify with and that resonate with me.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? What do you mean by the subtle aspects of yoga and how would you say they're affecting your life off the mat as well as your experience, on the mat?
Yeah, great question. So subtle, the subtle aspects of yoga are, I think they appear and they bubble up over time. And I think it's really, really common for people, their gateway into yoga to be one where we just need to tire the body out. I like to say, get my yayas out. So we start with this physical practice of asana, some breath work, some pranayama. And then over time, the subtle aspects start to appear, which is this sense of equanimity and balance and a generalized sense of calm and peace at the same time being very energized. And so the subtle aspects are really sort of the progression of yoga if you look at it in terms of the eight limbs of yoga, and that we have our practices, our moral and ethical practices, and we have breath work, and we have the physical practice. What we're moving towards along that spectrum is closer towards a state of energetic equilibrium where the mind is just remains in a calmer state more often with more consistency. And so the subtle aspects are things that it's more of a somatic felt sense of being present, of being able to step back and observe without necessarily wanting to blah, like give your opinion all the time or make a judgment all the time, or you can sort of take in the scene, and you've over time sort of become more familiar with some of the tools and the practices that help you just pause. And I think our culture is reactive, and so being able to just pause and take a beat contributes to a lot more what's the word I'm looking for? Just conviviality and openness in people. So the energy you're putting out is the energy that you're getting back, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I think particularly relates to motherhood, where that interaction between you and the child, or whatever age they are, is so important and
Yes.
intimate. So yeah, that I
Yes.
love the way you talk about having a more ability to pause and see, and the underlying emotions being calmer as the result of our practice over a period of time, which
Yes.
pausing within motherhood, I think, is such a key thing because it's so easy to be stressed and then reactive, and then that creates a whole cycle of tension, doesn't it? So,
It's so true, Alice, because words matter,
yeah,
right? I mean, words matter. And how we respond can be the difference between, a child feeling pretty judged, or I don't know, shamed even, and our own sense of, why did I say that? Oh, that was the wrong thing that came out of my mouth. I wish I did that differently. And who amongst us hasn't had that experience where you have an exchange with your child and you're like, oh, why did I say that? That was just the wrong thing to say. And then, of course, the guilt in me as the mother is, oh my gosh, have I done damage to my kid? Like, is this going to be a long-term thing? And, of course, I was a parent where, like, and I think this might be fairly common, is like having your kid run upstairs and slam their bedroom door and go, I hate that hurts, right? Words matter.
Yeah.
And so this whole for me, when I started my path, it the practice of yoga, the teachings of yoga, the philosophy, the psychology of it gave me a sort of roadmap to understand my own habitual responses. So as a type A anxious mom, like, you want to control. It has to be this way and it should be this way. And oh my gosh, we're veering from the plan. Like, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that is lesson number one, I
Yeah.
think, in yoga, is that things change, unexpected things happen, and how we respond matters. And it can change everything because it changes the energy and the dynamic of the relationship with you and your child.
Yeah. And the relationship with ourselves too, because when we're carrying that like need to control and the stress that comes from that, we get really dysregulated too. So, it affects us, we affect them, both negative and positive spirals. So I think yoga like helps us get into that positive spiral, doesn't it? Into that
It
like
it does.
ever increasing. The more we practice, the more we can feel it in ourselves, the more it affects the way we interact, the more it affects our relationships and the energy coming back at us. So
Yes, yes, yes. And I loved how you used the word dysregulation, because I think that is a very good descriptive word that sort of uh, lays out, when we're dysregulated emotionally, it can be really, really hard to come back to center. Because we get into the hamster wheel in the mind of, this perseveration on what we said, how it went, like, and getting undysregulated becomes like a very tough process. And so if we can start to notice, what our triggers are, you know, well, first off, just noticing, like, okay, I'm feeling funny right now. Like, we're having an interaction that's making me feel a certain way. And what is that feeling? And so the hard part is, you can't do that until you get into the habit of doing that. But getting into the habit of doing it requires us to be pretty observant about what's happening.
yeah,
So it's like, it's just, it's a path, it's a practice, right? That's what we say. Yoga is a practice,
yeah,
and we never perfect it.
no. Especially not as householders. We're always being challenged, aren't we? I can remember a yogic story where they said, there was a hermit that went and lived in a cave and they mastered meditation, they mastered equanimity, and then they came back into the world and poof. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. And my kids used to say, like, they knew I was really, really dedicated to my yoga practice. And so somewhere along the way, like, there was this perception that somehow I was supposed to be perfect all the time now. And so I'd start to get a little upset about something, or my tone of voice would change, or I would start doing my deep breathing. And they would go, Mom, I can hear you doing that breath work. I can hear you doing that deep breathing. Or Mom, they'd say, you need to take a breath. And so
Oh,
I'm like, oh my
too.
God, I can't win. Just trying. But yeah, I mean, and even if we've been practicing yoga for 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, it's it's still a practice. And we're never going to be perfect at how we respond or handle situations. But it's the idea that we can be more aware and potentially shift the kind of energy that we bring.
Yeah. Absolutely. And how do you feel things have changed as your kids have like left the nest and and they've been through college and now they're sort of living their own lives with their own careers. How do you feel your parenting's changed and also how do you feel your yoga practice has supported that change?
Mm. So one of the things that as I became more and more involved in my study of yoga, I made a very intentional decision to do my very best to work on listening first, and then responding, and usually doing it with a method of inquiry. So listening for what they're saying, and then responding with a line of inquiry that may help them work through whatever it is they're needing to work through, whether it's a decision that they're trying to make, a struggle that they're having with a friendship or a relationship, or, whether it was in high school or college or now professionally for them. Using listening skills and really trying to be heart centered, um, and then inquiry method to help them understand that the answers are there. We all have the answers, right? That's one of the things we always love to say in yoga, like the answers are there. We just have to let it arise by trying to listen more. And so I think that was a big evolution for me. And what I found was through, with my children especially, taking a beat, stepping back, and asking a lot of questions made all difference in terms of my relationship with them. And now that, my children, they both went away to college, and now they both live out of state working. And for me, it felt like, okay, this is a natural thing that's happening. This is what is supposed to happen. This is how we raise our children because we want them to leave the nest and be functioning adults, right? And so, yes, my role as mom, parent, house running of the household, yada, 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 that all changed. At the same time, I also felt in my heart that this is a good thing. This is what should happen. And it's not about me. It's about what have my husband and I, and me personally, what have we helped to create and grow here with these little seeds that we've watered. And now they're like, woo, right? And that's not to say that it's, it's not a rough road. Like I'll get calls, all the time with, Mom, this is I'm having a hard time with this and I need help with that. And oh, I'm so angry. This happened at work and I don't know what to do about this. And I hate work. I hate, my boss is this, that, you never stop being a parent. But parenting adult children, I think requires a little bit of, you know, fully understanding that they're adults now. And as adults, they're facing adult issues and challenges. And so, again, how can I listen? How can I support? What can I do? What kind of questions do I need to be asking for them to, at the end of the conversation, say, okay, I think this is how I want to handle it. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool, let's go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I like the release of control and really putting them at the center of their lives. It's I think as a parent, it's always that tension of wanting to control and fix and save and rush in and a big part of healthy transition into adulthood is learning to stand on your own 2 feet. And as parents, that means that we have to learn to let go and like be okay with not trying to control everything. So, yes, listening with heart is
Yes.
such an important practice, but not easy because, especially if we've so much of our identity is caught up in our role as a mom and, the fact we've given so much of ourselves over the previous like 18, 20, however many years. It's another, I guess, illustration of how it's a practice. We're constantly being called on to grow, aren't we?
We are. Each of us as parents is being called on to grow and evolve. And I think it's very natural to want to say to your child or a friend, anyone who's struggling, like, you should do this, or you should try that, or have you thought about XYZ? And why don't you do ABC? And um, it's hard to see people suffering. It's hard to see people we care about suffering and being challenged and in pain. It's like one example that I think of that was super, super impactful for me as a mom that was just tore at my heart was when my eldest daughter, Zoe, went away to college. She was going to school down in South Carolina, and we had dropped her off. And I literally was walking down the gangway, getting on the plane after having left her. And she called me and she said, Mom, I think I made a mistake. I need to come home. And that was the beginning of a full semester of helping her work through and manage extreme homesickness.
Yeah.
She was so homesick. Phone call after phone call. It didn't matter where I was. We could be sitting with, here home alone. I could be the middle of a party with friends. I would get the call, and it was like the world was literally coming to an end, and my heart was breaking. And, but I was of the firm belief that helping her manage it and be able to know she could get through this incredibly hard, uncomfortable, painful experience would make her stronger. Letting her come home and be local wouldn't have helped. And I just knew this in my heart of hearts. And she worked through it. She worked through it. And by the time she came home for Christmas break that year, that fall quarter of her freshman year, she couldn't wait to go back. She was so excited. And she had an incredible college experience. She made amazing friends and had a beautiful experience at her school. And she says to me now, she's 30 years old, Mom, it was one of the biggest gifts that you could have given me because it made me believe in myself.
Yeah.
I felt strong knowing I could get through that and I could do that. And so for me as a mom, it was probably one of the hardest things I had to do as a mother. And I'm sure it was hard for her father too. I know it was. And, but we do that because it's not about me making, like, trying to ease the pain in my heart. It's understanding that this is something, you know, listen, no challenge, no change, right?
Yeah.
There's no challenge in life. We never change, we never evolve, we don't grow. We don't learn what our capacity is for hardship, you know? So that was a really, really big big thing. And my eldest daughter is a very sensitive human being, and this was not the last time that she experienced this type of difficulty, homesickness, difficulty wanting things to be different or easier. And so I think also knowing what kind of person your kid is really important,
Yeah.
and being able to find ways to speak to their or help them build their strengths is really, really, really important and really hard to do as a parent.
And seeing them as they are and not expecting them to be different, to support them to
Mm-hmm.
grow, but not to try and force them to be the way you think they should be. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, hugely
Yeah.
important, I think, too. So,
Yeah. And it's being able to discern between the two, right?
yeah,
Discerning, like, what is my intention here versus what does this child or this human need from me right now?
yeah. And that leads
The
us back.
discernment is tough.
Yeah. And that leads us back, I think, to that self-awareness piece we were talking about earlier. Like our practice, so much of our yoga practice starts with developing that awareness of what's going on internally. So, like, unless we are aware of our intentions behind our actions and whether we're acting about from our own ego or our own triggers, as opposed to our child's best interests, we can't really make the best judgment, can we? So,
That's right. That's right.
so
Totally.
no, thank you, Carter, for that. As my our daughter is heading off to college in the fall, so I'm just feeling into the bittersweetness of being an empty nester and the excitement
Mm-hmm.
for her and the sadness
Mm-hmm.
about her moving. So
Right.
it's
It's all the things.
it's
It's
all the
all the things.
and I think that that is one of the gifts of yoga is it allows you to sit with the richness of the emotions, with the sadness as well as the joy and the pride and all of and the love. Also to
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge where, where you might be feeling sad or loss or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anyway, let's shift our focus a little bit now and talk about another challenge that we often face as our children get older, which is being called on to look after our own parents. Um, and I know that your mother passed away 4 years ago now, and that you were really involved in her care and in her passing. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
wonderful if you could talk a bit about how that time was for you and how your yoga practice supported you.
Yeah, sure. So, um, well, yeah, my mom's health got really complicated, well, about 5 years before she passed. Things got really complicated, and I found myself smack dab in the middle of what we call like the sandwich generation, right? So you're still parenting your own kids, and then your parents need you. Right. So you're in this like world of like you're just being called on from these two different places that require, again, like the relationship. You have to adjust and shift and figure out how to manage these very different energies that are coming at you. And so with my mom, helping her on her journey in the last, 4, 5, 6 years of her life, uh, again, was a big teaching moment for me and an evolutionary process. And I don't know how I would have done it gracefully had I not had yoga to fall back on, because my practice and the support of other yogis in my community and constantly brought me back to, all right, how can I use yoga as my path, as my roadmap to manage the needs of my mother and the relationship that I had with my mother, which wasn't perfect, right? We had a challenging relationship, both type A, both perfectionists, both control freaks. So using yoga again helped me to like step back and understand that this is a process that, listen, we're all going to get there. We're all going to be in the state that my mom was in, right? To different degrees and variations. We're all going to need our families to help us. And so, if it were me, what kind of support would I want? And so it was a very, I call it brutal, both brutal and beautiful simultaneously, because the process of sharing her journey with her as she really was dying was both sacred and really brutal. And I felt that my role with her was one to support and be present and understand that all I could do was help ease her way, support her and ease her path. Our medical system here in the United States, I think, it's very hard to be elderly and old in our medical system and in our culture. And, witnessing how my mom was treated in the medical system, being dismissed, being treated like a child was really hard for me to watch. And I found myself having to step in a lot, which also was fraught with challenges. But ultimately, she did go on hospice, and it was her choice. She decided she was ready to do that. And easing her through that process was, every day it was, my meditation, my breath work, sitting with sadness, sitting with memories, with, dealing with regrets that I had, anger that I had, all the things, all the emotions are there when you are easing or just partnering with a parent through their process of dying. And it's it helped me stay really grounded. And I think what it gave my mom was a feeling of support. And she knew I was always there present with her. And she knew I was there and I was advocating and I was supporting her. And I think it was a very special relationship that we ended up having after sort of a lifetime of having some conflict. This was a time to make amends and to end on, I don't know, this may sound funny, but end on a good note.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Does that make sense?
totally. Um, yeah, no, my heart goes out to you for the whole experience. I can really relate with the brutal analogy. When I lost my dad, I felt very similar, like so tough in many ways to see them so vulnerable, the person that you've always like seen as so strong and impactful in your life to be so vulnerable and not taken seriously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a real deep beauty in being there for it. Like part of you wants, oh, so part of me wanted to like run away, and I think that was where my practice really helped me have the courage to be present. And when I let myself be present for all of it, there is beauty even in the sort of heartbreak, isn't there? There's beauty in the passage of time and the intimacy of the relationship. And yeah, it's
Yes. You articulated that really, really well. Yeah. It's having the courage to be to be in the spaces that come up, all the different emotions that arise, and to function in traumatic situations, situations where there are emergencies, having to unexpectedly go to the hospital for this, that, or the other thing, or, manage pain, physical pain on their part. And it is like the parent becomes the child and you become the parent. And I also see it as like a sort of a duty, like,
Yeah.
for better, for worse, like my mom parented me. She did the best she could with the tools that she had. And so for me to be able to share this and really give to her in this way was, it was just super important to me, right?
Yeah.
And it was a way to come to terms with a lot of stuff, right? We all have baggage here and there, you know.
Yeah.
So I love how you put it as, the yoga definitely helps one have the courage to be present with what is.
And there's so much loss in motherhood generally, I think. There's, so many positive emotions and so much excitement and love and growth and all those things. And I think our culture celebrates those things quite well, but is less good at talking about some of the more challenging emotions like grief and loss that come with motherhood and really come with part of being a human. Um,
Mhm.
and how important it is for us to process and experience those feelings too. So, like as mums, we're constantly losing our child as they grow up. We
Mm,
become less and less important in their life. There is some
mm,
loss and grief that comes with that, as well as some pride and joy and maybe even some relief at times. But um, that sadness, that loss can still be there. And obviously, when you talk about the loss of your parents, that's a very profound, one of our most profound losses we're going to
mhm.
experience in our lifetimes. So, um, yeah.
Yeah.
And yoga, I think, can be so helpful with that because it gives us a language, a way of talking about it, a way of experiencing it,
Hmm.
which is not normal in our culture.
Exactly. It's not normal in our culture. Our culture is so much about, stiff upper lip, forward motion. What's the
Produce,
next thing? Right?
yeah. What's the next thing? What can we do? What can we achieve? As a, rather much less focus on how can we be and how can we be present for the whole of
Hmm.
our humanity.
Hmm. And I think one of the misperceptions is it's sort of counterintuitive, but it's when we build the skill of presence and an awareness and allowing to be what is, it is in that space that we actually move forward, that we actually progress, that we evolve, that we move our life in the direction that it needs to be.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Carter, for the time you've spent with me. If someone would like to work with you, what's the best way of getting in touch with you, either for personal yoga therapy or, yoga classes or whatever?
Yes, sure. Probably one of the easiest things to do is just go to our website, maleyoga.com, and you'll find me there. And the phone number attached there is my contact number. Just call me on my cell phone number, and you can also email me through there, carter@maleyoga.com, and I'm always available, and I always love to to chit chat about what needs are, what's going on, and together decide whether, we're a good match to work together. And yeah, I it's definitely a passion of mine is working one on one with people and having that sort of one on one relationship.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation and I feel it's been really rich and I really appreciate all your wisdom as ever, Carter. It's always a joy to talk to you.
Well, it's always awesome to talk to you too, Alice, and I'm so excited that you've created this way to connect with people.